Labą dieną.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to see all of you gathered here.
The translation should work. Sveikinu.
Welcome, particularly our foreign guests. I hope the interpretation is available and you can hear the interpretation, English Channel 2. We find ourselves in the buildings of the Parliament of the Republic of Lithuania, and this is a historic hall of the Lithuanian Parliament. I would like to welcome you all, and I was quite surprised to learn how many foreign guests are taking part in today's event. So I welcome all of you who have already took part in a day and a half long discussions, those that lasted yesterday and that are continuing today. Throughout these events, we've hosted over 80 guests from 15 European countries, including Canada and Australia. I hope we will be able to offer you a guided tour of the buildings of the Seimas following this event. And so during that guided tour, you'll be able to learn more about this historic hall and other premises of our buildings. If not, then I hope you will be able to visit Lithuania on another occasion and do that. In any case, today is a very important occasion, and I would like to take the opportunity and express my gratitude to Ms. Ingrida Zurlytė, head of the World Health Organization Country Office, Lithuania, for this event when we are able to assess alcohol control policy in Lithuania. Here in Lithuania, we tend to be self-critical, and sometimes we fail to notice and observe those changes that occur on a daily basis. And so it's always a good thing to have people from aside to take a look at what is happening in our country. And so given that, it's a pleasure that we have foreign guests in today's event that took part in the assessment of Lithuania's alcohol control policy. And so today we will discuss that assessment by foreign experts and the tendencies that they have observed in Lithuania. I now turn to the Lithuanian participants of today's event. I hope that at the end of today's conference, you will be able to express your own opinion on how each and every one of us in our communities, in our workplaces, in our families, how can each and every one of us can focus on the prevention of alcohol addiction as well as other addictions that we are dealing with in our country. So I hope that today's presentations will serve as some food for thought and as some brainstorming for our further discussion. And now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Lina Šukytė-Korsakė, Chair of the Committee on Health Affairs of the Seimas.
Thank you, Dr. Saulius Čaplinskas. It's very nice to see you all here, to see so many of you here. I would like to thank the organizers. This is a relevant topic in Lithuania in 2018, since our laws changed, and today we can see that we have significant results in terms of alcohol consumption and the problems related to it. Of course, the problem still prevails, but today we'll be able to analyze and discuss what further steps can be taken to tackle this problem. I would like to thank our guests for coming, and I wish everyone fruitful discussions and useful insights. Thank you.
Pirmininkė,
Thank you. This event is organized by the Commission for Addiction Prevention of the Seimas. I see many members of the Seimas who are actively involved in this activity. Others can watch our event live. And the video recording of the event will be available on the Seimas website after the event. Another organizer of the event is the World Health Organization Regional Office for Europe, and its head, Ingrida Zurlytė.
Noriu padėkoti priklausomybių prevencijos.
Thank you very much, and I would like to take the opportunity and express my gratitude to the Commission for Addiction Prevention of the Seimas, as well as its chair, Mr. Saulius Čaplinskas. This is an opportunity for us to host this event in the buildings of the Seimas. I'm also grateful to the chair of the Committee on Health Affairs, Ms. Šukytė Korsakienė, and for their support. So we find ourselves in the hall where some of the historical decisions have been taken, including those connected with health. Today we will be discussing a very topical issue for Lithuania, that of alcohol control. As you know, alcohol consumption rates were quite high a while ago. At the moment, those figures have significantly went down. Hopefully, this trend will continue. And so we're looking forward to a very productive discussion on those policies that have been implemented back in 2017, 2018, as been said, and how they have contributed to improving public health, including further measures that may be taken in order to continue with the good pace and the good trends. So thank you once again to everyone for taking part in the event. Today's discussion is very important in that we have representatives of Lithuanian ministries and institutions, as well as European and non-European organizations and representatives of different countries. So hopefully those discussions will be quite productive, because the people that came to Lithuania, they are willing to learn about the effectiveness of those policies that were introduced in Lithuania, and they are hoping to learn from the good practices of Lithuania. Lithuania is in general a success story, and so hopefully this success story will be further supported, consolidated, and all of that depends on the political will and the vigilance of each and every one of us, so that we continue with the positive achievements and improving the situation in general. So thank you very much, and I wish you a fruitful discussion. Well, thank you, and let us move on to the keynote speeches that we should treat as an introduction into our further discussion and reflection. So with that, I would like to express my gratitude for accepting the invitation to Dr. Maria Neufeld, the technical officer from the World Health Organization Regional Office for Europe.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I can only echo the word of thanks of my colleague Ingrida. Can we see if the slides are working? I have just one slide as an introduction that should frame today's discussions, and that should introduce the topic and its importance. And it's basically answering the question, why is it important to look at the Lithuanian case, and what can we learn from that before we move on to the more in-depth discussions or in-depth presentation by the experts. Thank you. They're up. Okay, so what is it that we can learn from Lithuania, and why do we need to talk about alcohol in Europe? And I really just have one slide and two pictures that will hopefully convince you. So the first picture here, what we're seeing, it is a map of the European Union, and what we're seeing here are differences in life expectancies between men and women. And you see, the darker the color of a country is, the higher the gap is in life expectancy between men and women. And you can clearly see that there is a gradient across EU countries. So we see that in the Baltics we have the largest gap in life expectancy between men and women. And why is this the case? Well, part of the answer lies here. The map looks similar, but it's a completely different map. It is a map of alcohol attributable mortality rates, age standardized, across the EU countries, showing how much alcohol contributes to mortality or life expectancy, if you want to express it in a different way. So the key message is there is a major life expectancy gap between men and women and between East and West in the EU. Alcohol is a major driver in this life expectancy deficit in men, and we're all for equal opportunities here, right? So, and the situation is more dire in the eastern part, because on average, we estimate that about 5% of all deaths that are occurring in the European Union are caused by alcohol, but these numbers are much more higher, about 3 times higher in the Baltics. But the good news is, and the hopeful message is, that it has improved, and it has improved a lot, mainly due to policy interventions that your courageous government has taken and continues to implement and to safeguard and protect. And today we will learn all about it. With that, thank you very much, and over to you, Chair.
Thank you so much. So brief and clear. No, dabar tada
And now to learn more on the success story, as it was called, I would like to now give the floor to Mr. Mindaugas Štelemekas, Head of Health Research Institute at the Lithuanian University of Health Sciences.
Thank you. Without long ado, let me begin my presentation. A short introduction. Today we are talking about the results of a 5-year project, and many researchers were involved in the project. More than 30 researchers from the Baltics, from Canada and other countries. And our goal was to assess the effect of complex alcohol control policies in Lithuania. It was a very prevalent problem in Lithuania, the high alcohol consumption level, and what you saw from Maria's slides and from the World Health Organization, you saw the differences between various countries as well as the countries which face alcohol consumption problems. And of course, this high alcohol consumption decreases life expectancy at birth. And this is the illustration from Lithuania Health Profile. This is not our work. This is a slide from OECD and European Commission publication on Lithuania's health. And we can see that Lithuania is significantly behind the EU average. Currently, according to the statistics of 2022, our life expectancies 76 years, and we are lagging behind in that, even though we've made significant progress. But nevertheless, we're not the last country on the chart. But there is a still significant gap between life expectancy of women and men, approximately 9 years between men and women. And our Lithuanian women have been long in the Western Europe, while our men are stuck in the Eastern Europe. And we have to do something about it. And alcohol control policy targets men in Lithuania. As for the life expectancy at birth, it is represented by the gray line on top, and the blue line is mortality caused by alcohol poisoning. And every year we have approximately 40,000 of deaths from alcohol poisoning. So this is an identical correlation, a mirror image, so to say, when mortality from alcohol poisoning increases, the life expectancy at birth decreases. It means that alcohol has a strong effect in our general picture of life expectancy in Lithuania. Our alcohol control measures are represented by green lines, and when those measures are implemented, our indicators get better. And our situation starts to get better when Lithuania starts implementing the first steps of alcohol control projects in Lithuania. And then we have a breakthrough in 2007. And we're going to talk about 2018, which were even a bigger breakthrough in Lithuania. Of course, our progress was stifled by COVID-19 pandemic, and we identified 4 main points in time which had the most effect. And this slide talks about these measures. It is important to talk about the pandemic, during which Lithuania did not implement any significant alcohol control measures, but were other measures at play during that time. And even though shops were closed, delivery services were available, people could not celebrate in town and consume alcohol, but then the restrictions would be lifted, and then we would gather for celebrations. And during the recent years, the situation has been improving, and I hope the situation will continue to improve. One of the results that we can see in the work done by our project is 2 time periods when a variety of alcohol control measures were implemented. On that year, when we implemented these measures, the mortality, despite the overall mortality in the country, in since 2014, all-cause mortality decreased by 3%. We increased the excise duty on alcohol, which helped us to avoid more than 1,400 deaths per year since the start of the implementation of that measure. So only complex alcohol control policy is effective. And this is an example of how only one measure worked. In 2018, we made several important decisions. We increased the legal age for buying alcohol. We banned alcohol advertisement. We limited the hours of alcohol retail sale on Sundays. As for the damage done by alcohol consumption, we see that the proportion is decreasing. Our men are still on the eastern side of the statistics. And as for harm by women, we see other trends. And as for the excise duties, it's a win-win situation for our country. When we increase excise duties, we increase the health of our population and we increase the state budget by doing that. And this is an important contribution to our budget. Of course, one day there will be a psychological breakthrough where these revenues from excise duties will decrease. Overall, it is important to continue complex alcohol control policy. We need to strengthen our control system. Our results show that complex alcohol control policies work very well. Moreover, alcohol control policy targets men effectively, which are highly affected by high alcohol consumption in Lithuania. And we show good results in this area in Lithuania, and Lithuania is a good example in the world, and our results are worthy of praise. Thank you.
Ačiū labai, gerbiamas profesoriau.
Thank you, Professor, very much. And so let us now move on to the final keynote presentation, after which we're looking forward to having a further debate. So this is where I introduce to you Professor Jürgen Rem from Canada to inform us on what people can learn from our Lithuanian experience. So please, Professor.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for the invitation here to speak in this historical hall. It's exactly the first question the journalist asked: what can Europe learn from Lithuania? And I think it is a very timely question because we can summarize these key findings. And of course, there's a lot of scientific literature. There are more than 60 articles. If you really want to read those, nobody wants to read those. So we put them into 2 pages. And those 2 pages, the second page is basically all the references that you see that people have not lied, and there's really statistics, and there's lots of work of 5 years behind it. But I will go straight to the conclusions. I'm not going to bore you with methods or anything, just the conclusions. The first conclusion is, and that is not only for Lithuania, but really alcohol excise taxation is a powerful public health tool. For alcohol, it is the most important single measure. We need alcohol policy, which is more than only taxation, but if you have to select only one, taxation is the most powerful. But it is also only working if the taxation is reducing affordability. Very simply, if you do taxation and you do an increase, let's say, of 2%, but if your income is increasing by 10%, the 2% is not working. Very simple. And that's what we call affordability. Taxation has to be in a way that it reduces affordability, that alcohol overall becomes less affordable. And if it's done this way, it will reduce all-cause mortality. So overall, it will increase life expectancy, and that is an effect which is especially for males. We studied not only those taxation increases in Lithuania, but in all Baltic countries, and there were in total, in over 20 years, 12 taxation increases, and on average, each one of those taxation increases, no matter if it happened in Estonia, in Latvia, or in Lithuania, decreased male mortality by 1.3%. That would be corresponding to 93 deaths postponed in Estonia, 166 in Latvia, and 240 more or less in Lithuania if we use the 2019 population data. That is a lot. If you, with just one measure, can reduce so many lives in those countries. And to avoid problems with cross-border shopping and to avoid another tax war in the Baltics, taxation increases should be communicated and imposed in concert between countries. That would be the more rational way to go than to try to outdo the partner in being lower to attract more Finns in or whatsoever. So the basic gist is cross-border shopping is overrated. But if you want to avoid it, it can easily be avoided if countries move more in concert and adjust their strategies with their neighbors. What is also important is that taxation increase reduces mortality inequalities. What does that mean? Strange word. Inequalities basically mean that in every country, the rich have a longer life expectancy than the poor. The poor die earlier. And this gap in life between the rich and the poor can be reduced if you put on alcohol taxation increases. And that has been shown in more than one country, but in Lithuania we have shown it. So it's very clear, if you want to do something for the poor, in terms of their life expectancy, in terms of their overall health, taxation increases work. And they reduce youth drinking, prevalence, frequency of use and intoxication. I will speak a little bit more about youth in one more slide, but taxation works for youth as well. And finally, it creates revenue. I will not say a lot more. Mindaugas has shown the slide. Remember, maybe 2017, when the taxation increase was done, there were people demonstrating in front of the Seimas. There were newspaper articles predicting a drop of excise taxation by 100 millions. What happened? There was an increase of 70 millions. So this is evidence-based and not scare tactics which had been used to avoid this increase. Availability restrictions also work, but they work on different outcomes. Basically, availability restrictions have a stronger effect on 100% alcohol attributable mortality. That means those diseases which are very strictly related to heavy drinking and are 100% alcohol attributable, for example, alcohol-related liver disease, alcohol poisoning, or alcohol cardiomyopathy. Those are pretty heavy drinkers affected, and there the availability restrictions work. But you can also see it in the general population. Lithuania was one of those countries which had this bump on Mondays. So the mortality of ischemic heart disease went up every Monday, regularly. And on Mondays in vacations, it went up even more. Since alcohol can only be purchased on Sundays on 5 hours between 10 and 3, this bump is disappeared. It does not exist. You no longer have the typical, what he would call Eastern bump in ischemic mortality, and it disappeared. Overall, the reductions are pretty strong. They're more than 10% for men and almost 8% for females. And what we also see is that the minimal legal purchasing age can be seen as effective. We have shown it for Lithuania. It was a reduction in traffic mortality, but of course not that many people die in Lithuania aged 18 and 19. The big effects are on sexual transmittable diseases, and the even bigger effects are later. If you live in a country where you were served alcohol only after 20, you can see those effects, as the Finns have shown, even 50 years later. So that is a long-term effect. I cannot prove that to you for Lithuania because you've only changed very recently. Now we are coming to youth. And there we've shown that both taxation and availability works. But what worked the most is this effect of the marketing ban. Look at this graph. There are 6 countries. Those countries are chosen as the countries who are in the same region as Lithuania, meaning Estonia and Latvia, or had some, Poland is also part of this, and countries who had similar measures. France had, in the same time, some restrictions on marketing. Estonia had some restrictions on marketing. Italy increased the minimum legal drinking age. So we wanted to select countries which were, of course, comparable, meaning in the European Union, which are even more comparable being in the region, and which had implemented some of those measures which we wanted to show the effects of. Okay? And we studied that between 2007 and 2019. And overall, why for this period? Because that were comparable survey estimates, over 80,000 of those answers. So it's a pretty big study. And you see, by chance, but this is not by chance, Lithuania was having the highest frequency of intoxication. Lithuania was always in the top. And now it's in the bottom. That started before the marketing ban. The marketing ban was 2018. But the final push, the effect of the marketing ban alone, without the marketing ban, Lithuania would have reduced, but only to 1.5 average occasions of intoxication in the last 12 months. But with the marketing ban, we have a 50% more reduction, which now places Lithuania to be in the bottom of the European Union. So if you want to do something, especially for youth, and most parliaments are very much concerned about their young, about the next generations. And this is a very simple and effective measure. It doesn't require a lot of very complicated procedures. It's a complete ban. So any violation of the ban is an offense, very simple. And you don't have to say, oh, we have a ban until 10 o'clock. Now this starts at 10:01. That's a lot of, that doesn't work. The comprehensive ban is what works, and you can see that it works mainly on intoxication, and it works mainly on intoxication. Why? Because the algorithm on social media, if you have kids, ask them what they get. They get a lot of advertisements for drinking, and after a party, why do I get now more? Well, very simple, because the algorithm sees that you have been to parties and you have consumed alcohol and you've written a little email about it, and that algorithm gets you more advertisement. Very simple. So, in sum, alcohol taxation is the most comprehensive policy measure. Availability restrictions are underrated, but they're important for improving patterns of drinking. A ban on marketing overall is a long-term instrument, but it's an investment in the future of your kids. And all three measures have shown impact on adolescents, and they should therefore be used in concert. Europe overall is underusing all of these measures and could learn from the Baltic countries and especially from Lithuania. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor. Na kągi, kolegos,
Let us move on to the questions, to our discussion. Since we're in the Lithuanian Parliament and the event is co-organized with the Seimas Commission for Addiction Prevention, I would like to give the floor to the members of the Seimas that are present in this hall and who are the members of the Seimas Commission for Addiction Prevention. We have a few of them. Actually, we have quite a few members of the Seimas here in this hall who are interested in this topic. Who of you would like to ask a question or to give us a remark? Ms. Daiva? I'll join the discussion later, but taking the opportunity, I would like to thank everyone because despite us looking good in the context of Europe and being a role model, our indicators are still concerning, and we have to continue with our policies. And I think this conference is very important in that we celebrate the fact that everything is getting better, but this is also our commitment not to stop at it. Who else would like to say something? Ms. Andrus Busila? Thank you. I would like to point out that during the presentation, we've heard that alcohol control measures improved the Lithuanian situation, but the implementation is very important. And as members of the Commission for Addiction Prevention, but we notice the widespread consumption of other substances, for example, electronic cigarettes, and we are starting to control their consumption, but those measures are not effective because we're not controlling the implementation process of those measures, and we have to work on that as well. Thank you.
Gerbiamas Sysas ar Jurgita Sijoninė?
Mr. Caesars or Ms. Sejonine? No, later. Who else would like to ask a question or to make a remark?
Tada aš priverstas provokuotai. Profesorius Badaras.
Professor Badras always has an opinion. So,
Kitų psichotropinių medžiagų.
Professor, so we're moving from alcohol to other psychotropic substances. Thank you for the floor. As a professional, as a patriot of Lithuania, I commend the work that was done by scientists, which proved that restrictions and Best Buy's work, and they were successfully implemented in our countries. And despite our opponents who say that restrictions don't work, actually they do work. And I would like to thank Professor Mr. Jürgen Rem and Professor Mindaugas Štelemekas. And we are no longer a loser as a country. We are a role model. I believe that the Lithuanian parliament will manage to alter its opinion on restrictions, and restrictions are not equal control. Restrictions are not bans.
Matau šalia jūsų.
Thank you, Professor. I see sitting next to you a uniformed colleague, one that is part of the implementation of control system. So what about the police? Does it observe any positive dynamics? Or perhaps until we see some positive trends in your statistics, there's still a lot that needs to be done. So what do you have to say to that? Good day, everyone. Well, the police does indeed observe some positive dynamics. And punitive responsibility for drunk driving has definitely delivered some positive results. And society was much eager to learn on the benefits of the introduction of this measure. The reduction in the cases of drunk driving has went down. And before the introduction of punitive responsibility for drunk driving, 60% of the cases were those where drivers had 1.5% of alcohol blood, whereas those cases went down to 40% following the introduction of this measure. So some good results were demonstrated. Thank you. Well, you said that there were about 10,000 cases in total with drunk drivers. And apparently these are mainly people that are quite dignified, with a certain high social status, but there are certain discrepancies between the different genders, I believe. So would there be anybody willing to respond? Perhaps this could be attributed to some cultural differences or not. Apparently, bans are not enough, but then again, there's still a lot that could be done by the Parliament of the Republic of Lithuania, maybe we should think more about the effects of social advertising. We are well aware of the effectiveness of the social advert on the effects of driving without wearing a seatbelt, featuring a child that was not wearing a seatbelt. So this advertising was very effective, apparently. Well, if I may, I could say that this advert was available some 6 to 7 years ago. Then we stopped with it, deemed as a cruel one. And believe it or not, but about 20,000 in 20,000 of cases of the punished drivers, they are usually those that are not wearing seatbelts. Well, I would like to take this opportunity and ask the officer, perhaps you have some kind of a vision on the potential of some kind of plans to reduce the number of drunk drivers. Maybe we should introduce zero tolerance for all drivers. I myself am the chair of the Committee on Health Affairs, so I try to look at alcohol control issues from the healthcare perspective. I know that alcohol consumption reduces reaction of drivers. What about you as police officers? How do you approach this issue? Well, as police officers, we say that alcohol is incompatible with driving, and so zero alcohol tolerance introduction is definitely a good idea, because we're talking about the saving of people's lives. We try to promote the idea of zero tolerance, but we don't receive 100% support for the introduction of this measure. What about the rest of the audience? Good morning. My name is Ilona Tamutienė. I represent Vytautas Magnus University and the Lithuanian University of Health Sciences. Perhaps I would be able to speak on the harm of alcohol consumption. I look into the harm of alcohol consumption on other target groups, and I would like to appreciate the effects of the research that has been conducted in this area, that is the effect of alcohol consumption on family members of those that consume alcohol. I had a chance to take part in the standardized research, European research, and we received some very good indicators demonstrating that those bans were quite effective when it comes to harm on non-drinkers. Certainly, we're still lagging behind a bit behind the EU average, because alcohol-related vandalism and other cases are still on a high. But when it comes to harm done on children, that's my area of research, and I refer to those cases where children have alcohol abusers as parents, or are forced to deal with alcohol intoxication because of their drinking parents. I had a chance to work with the people from the Child Protection Ombudsman services and the police officers, but I would just like to propose the following. Perhaps we should focus more on children as we go forward. Before preparing for this conference, I refreshed my memory on the situation in other countries. I know that a lot of longitudinal studies are conducted into the harm on health of non-drinkers and children in particular. These are some very serious longitudinal studies where parents registered as those suffering from certain alcohol-related disorders were the main cohort, and those studies looked into the health of the relatives of these people, children in particular. And so those studies demonstrate that children from these kinds of families, they are characterized of poorer health indicators compared to children of non-drinking parents. And so overall, we have determined that the rates of children of drinking parents in terms of the health effects of drinking parents is on the rise. And this is something that we've failed to address in our country just yet. I know that the representatives of Child Protection Ombudsman Office and police officers and say that those decisions that have been taken, they were very good, but we have to keep up with the good work. It is usually the case that the doctors are mainly involved in the implementation of this policy, but when it comes to alcohol consumption and its harm on society, I believe we should also focus on the situation of children in this area in cooperation with the different stakeholder institutions, including the police officers. I believe if we look into the availability of alcohol or affordability of alcohol, there's still a lot of room for improvement. We don't have many specialized programs, be it 5 Steps program or CRAFT program. They're still not available in Lithuania, although we try to introduce them. So this is just me trying to remind you that this is a wider issue. It is not about only a drinking person, although we are on the right track. So let's just unite our efforts and try and engage other sectors in developing further alcohol control measures. Professor Jürgen would like to respond.
I would like to respond to the traffic situation, because we have actually studied the traffic situation. And then my last sentence will be about what you just said. The traffic situation is characterized by that it can be impacted by direct measures, like if you reduce or ban alcohol from traffic participation. Those measures work, but it can also be impacted by the general measures. We have studied it, and in Lithuania, this is Lithuanian data, each of those taxation increases were also associated with a decrease in traffic participation of drunk driving or of injuries by drunk drivers. We have studied that, and that is a very significant association. So both measures, the direct ones and the indirect ones, help to reduce alcohol attributable traffic deaths. And we've done another study in Estonia where we found similar effects. There was a green book for alcohol policy in Estonia, and during that period of implementation of this green book of alcohol policy, the traffic, overall all traffic indicators related to alcohol decreased. The final point which I wanted to make is the following. When people see something like COVID coming, they react everything only with COVID. And then they say, okay, but now it's COVID, we have to save our industry, we have to make sure that we distribute the alcohol differently, we loosen some laws, etc. This is a problem. What we can see during COVID is that overall traffic indicators went down very clearly because you had lockdowns, people were not allowed to go to the street, that's trivial. So that it went down. But if you look into the percentage of the fatalities related to alcohol, it went up during COVID. that is a very normal phenomenon. People who are drinking a lot in times of stress drink more. That's a biological reaction. This is actually characterized, we have a lot of biological research on heavy drinking, but that means that during COVID, the alcohol attributable mortality increased, the alcohol attributable fatalities on the streets increased, yes, and we corrected for any coding problems in Lithuania, but these is very important things. So next time, unfortunately, as a health researcher, there will be another pandemic. I mean, sorry, there's no way around that. We cannot predict exactly when it comes, but it will come pretty soon, meaning we're talking about decades and not of centuries. It is wrong. We have to know what we know biological and we have to implement it. It is wrong then to give more alcohol, to make it more available. We have to do exactly the opposite. The final thing is regarding the last intervention. Basically, we have two consequences of alcohol. The consequence to the drinker and the harm to others. That's, I mean, the colleague from police knows it very well. There's one drink driver, and this drink driving may cause fatalities to people who have never tasted any drop of alcohol in their life. Could be kids, could be abstainers, could be anybody. And so there are studies on harm to others, and the overall costs to society of alcohol to others are about as big as to the drinker. So what the colleague has actually indicated is very important also from a perspective of a parliament who has to care for everybody, not only the harm to the drinker, but also the harm to others. I was too long, but I tried to make those points in reaction to what has been said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Seime priimta, kad jeigu kažkas buvo paminėtas.
Thank you very much. Well, it's usually the case that when somebody is mentioned in an event, that person has the right to respond. So would there be anybody willing to respond from the Children's Rights Ombudsman institution? Thank you. I represent the said institution. I would just like to point out that we do observe the problem in general and that we appreciate the improvement of trends, and we should not stop at that. We should continue working together and seek better results. So that would be briefly it on my part.
Toliau prašau, gerbiama Seimo narė Jurgita.
Ms. Jurgita Sejonienė, member of the Seimas, is next. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for hosting this event and for the optimism that you've shared. But as a member of the Seimas, seeing so many of my colleagues as well, I can say that this is also an indication for us, because in the previous legislative term, there were quite a few attempts to legalize alcohol trade. And even in this legislative term, we have one member of the Seimas, Mr. Nedzinskas, who is offering, wants to bring back non-alcoholic champagne for children. So I hope we will continue with the good work, be it restrictions on alcohol or tobacco product sales. And I do appreciate the initiatives related to e-cigarettes. I hope you will support my proposal on preventing tobacco sales to people younger than 21. So I hope this is the complex approach that international health organizations are talking about, that we will adopt in our joint efforts in an attempt to prevent the sales of different substances. So I hope we will take a unanimous vote when adopting such decisions in the Parliament. Thank you very much. I can just reassure you that the said initiative of a member of the Seimas on the non-alcoholic champagne for children has been suspended. The member of the Seimas has withdrawn his proposal and he does not intend to go forward with it. But you are right in saying that what is effective must be reinforced as opposed to taken a step back. It has not been registered just yet, but there have been proposals to lift the sale restriction on the alcohol on the sales of alcohol on weekends. I believe this is not the right move. Perhaps we should discuss a ban on alcohol sales on Sundays. At the moment, alcohol is on sales until 3 o'clock on Sunday, so perhaps we should think of further restricting the availability of alcohol on Sunday. So this is the result of our further discussions. But the most important thing is to have a unanimous approach in our society on these issues, because it does not matter in that case which political affiliation we represent, so long as we move in the same direction with the rest of society. Let's say if we all support the zero alcohol tolerance, then perhaps we will be able to move on with this in the future as well. I believe you can still recall the resistance that we had to face with banning smoking in public premises. I was aware of the road that Ireland had to go through with the introduction of the similar ban, because we know the culture in Irish pubs there, and the business didn't lose after the introduction of the ban, and so the same could be said about the introduction of this ban here in Lithuania. So the most important thing is to contribute to shaping the general opinion in society. A representative of the police has mentioned a very important case with the social advertising that was a few years available, one that was deemed a cruel one. Nevertheless, it was an effective one. So perhaps we should not reinvent the bike and return to the same measures. We have a representative of the Ministry of Health, Mr. Rubikas. So what about the Ministry of Health? What does the current government program entail in this particular area, and what is your personal opinion on that? I know that you are doing a lot in this particular area, and I have to say that you're quite an authoritative figure among your colleagues. So we will try to keep up with the good synergy that you pursue. So please.
Grįžti dar truputį prie jūsų paminėtos socialinės.
Thank you. I would like to come back to the social advertising, and social advertising has been implemented in Lithuania, but we do not use it to its own potential. And I'm talking about the marking of products, because it is very effective, because everyone who buys alcohol, they see the label and they see the warning, and the principle is to evoke certain emotions of fear or anxiety, and there are evidence showing that it works. And we have missed the opportunity to implement this with alcohol, because alcohol has no nutritional value. It affects a variety of diseases. It has social impact, and these things would make people think before consuming alcohol. So this is an area our government has envisioned in its program, and we would like the support of the parliament in this area. And as for the activities of the ministry, we engage in complex approach, and we're hoping to see significant increase in the field of addiction treatment, to intensify our efforts and to allocate more funds to this area. Also, we're going to focus on prevention for children, and together with European Commission, we are following the Icelandic model that we're planning to implement in Lithuania. And for other people, control is more effective. Others are better influenced by education. And as a ministry, we are aiming at complex measures. I can't speak on the behalf of all members of the Commission for Addiction Prevention, but I'm almost 100% sure that everyone would support these initiatives of your ministries, because the World Health Organization has already shown that warnings on labels of alcoholic beverages are effective, and I think this would be supported by the Committee on Health Affairs. So let's continue our work. I'm glad that you talk about strengthening of mental health institutions, and we need to enable those institutions in a more effective manner. And as for the prevention and education of the youth, we still have so much to do, and we are not using the potential of those areas in terms of non-governmental organizations, media. And Professor Štelemekas, the floor is yours. I would like to comment on the thought about the initiative by a member of the Seimas, Nedzinskas, which has been withdrawn, but the member of the Seimas highlighted the existing problem. Even though the champagne for children is banned, and many years ago we banned all the replicas of tobacco products, so the mechanism is very clear. But we have non-alcohol drinks which are replicas of alcoholic beverages, for example, non-alcoholic alcohol-free beer, which actually has tiny amounts of alcohol, and it's a replica of an alcoholic beverage, and we should ban these beverages as well, or at least to make sure that there is a legal buying age of 20 years. So many things have been done, but they're not completed in case for the so-called champagne for children. Another point is labels. And alcohol-free drinks have their nutritional value on the label, and it should be done for the alcoholic beverages as well. And there are people who want to count calories, who want to learn about the nutritional value of their food. They don't have this information when it comes to alcohol. And in this case, we need to pay more attention to the strengthening of the control policies, and we have many measures implemented. However, the implementation of those measures won't be 100%. And there's a department for alcohol and tobacco control, which needs to be strengthened. And they're working with a variety of pilot projects, and they need to be implemented at a larger scope. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. We should be thinking not about alcohol-free beer, but about energy drinks and the harm they cause, and together with excise duties on sugar. I would like to hear your opinion on that as well, but I would like to give the floor to other people. Ms. Grażyna Belen, the floor is yours.
Organizing this very valuable and productive meeting. I'm Krzysztof Przewoźniak. I'm a researcher from Poland and working one leg at a Polish university, other leg at Los Angeles at the University of South California, represented here Professor Witold Zatonski, which is, I guess, well known also in Lithuania as a global tobacco control leader. Please accept his best greetings to you. Before I start a little more general comments on that project, I would like to go back for a while with a sentiment to this photo. I've been in the crowd. We've been here with WHO public health missions with Witold, Professor Zatonski. Exactly, I don't know what day was first or second when Russian tanks surrounded your parliament with public health missions. And when we ask, you can imagine a Russian officer to allow us to go in to debate on public health in these horrible days, you know. His face was frozen and eyes was dramatically open, you know. That was the first day, by the way, after Lithuania coming to democracy, when we first debate on public health. This debate is the next step, to me also very, very important. Why? First, because, at least to me, I have almost 40 years experience in public health, mostly in tobacco control, but also in alcohol control, diet control, cancer control. The project is a very good example of productive collaboration between researchers and policymakers, which is, believe me, still very rare at global scale, even in the most developed countries. We researchers are not very much respected by policymakers, and our conclusions, even prepared very well, you know, and clearly presented, are not in each occasion accepted. So to me, and I'm very happy to say that, you know, this project is an example, you know, that our voice, researchers' voice, is heard here. Thank you for that. Second, this project to me is or could be a best practice for other countries, at least of that region, in alcohol control policy, including Poland. As we've been example for you in tobacco control in the 90s, nowadays you are example for us in alcohol control policy. We are now organizing, 1 month ago I organized with my colleagues, parliamentarians from the Health Committee in Poland, the first scientific conference on the next steps in tobacco and alcohol control policy in my country. And we will be very happy to invite both researchers and parliamentarians from Lithuania to convince Polish parliamentarians to get step forward. It's not so easy. Still we have some voices, you know, some skepticism. We have to, in my view, as I said, This is the example how productive could be that kind of collaboration. Also collaborate internationally and bilaterally between Baltic countries and in the whole research group. Don't worry, I'm just answering, to the skeptic voices about so-called, total effective implementation of your policy. This regulation never influence behaviors of all individuals. We are looking at what could be happen from the perspective of birth, public health, okay? Always there will be kind of individuals who will be breaking the law, okay? Trying to get something, an apple from the tree, This is also behavior of adolescents. For what is this project? The name of this project is to make step forward, and you, for sure, to me, get a very big step forward in changing alcohol drinking behaviors, and we see that also changing the alcohol attributable mortality. Why is also very productive? Because at the same time, you get tax revenues, which is, by the way, also scientifically proved. We call that Laufer curve. Okay, so you can increase, not to the end, but still, at least in countries where the price is very elastic for alcohol or tobacco, okay, the price, okay, the consumption will be fall down, the taxes revenues will be increase. And the second important aim of this project to me is that you are now able, you have all instrument, or almost all instrument, to prevent alcohol use among adolescents. Especially at the time when alcohol industry and tobacco industry too, someone say here on e-cigarettes, is smarter and doing, more global policy, for instance, with additives, with new technologies, with new marketing strategy, okay? So we should be at least a step behind, but still very close to what they are doing. And your policy is an example of that, what we can do. Going back, the last comment, to the cost. The cost is very important for parliamentarians, for economists. Still, we are some lacks in most of countries, including Poland and probably in Lithuania, in reporting on the cost. We are calculating this cost using rather modeling than direct cost. But we know also very well what is the cost. In Poland, the cost of alcohol use is almost half of the national health fund, 50%. So each year we are losing 50% of the money that we can spend, for hospitals, for healthcare system. Still, that kind of view, that kind of approach, I don't know why. I can imagine, because my background is also sociology, not only medicine and life sciences. Why politicians, why other people don't want to accept, don't want to understand, that kind of observation. The observation is not only very important for the state, for politicians, but we have also household budget. For household budget, the same. Okay? People losing a lot of money at their household budget for alcohol or tobacco use, at the same time not able, to pay for healthcare. Please consider that. Congratulations once again.
Dziękuję bardzo. Thank you very much. Man atrodo labai geras.
It's a very good remark on the importance of cooperation, especially with neighboring countries, and we can learn from each other and use each other as role models. And it's important to strengthen the ties between parliamentarians, especially in the neighboring countries, let alone the current geopolitical situation. I saw there are more people who would like to say something? Algirdas Andriukaitis, signatory. I have a proposal. We have a variety of museums dedicated for people, for events, but we don't have a museum for sobriety, and certain Western countries have museums for sobriety, and our neighbors, Latvians, also don't have such an event, and I have quite a lot of material on the topic, and I would be willing to gift my material to the said museum. This is a picture, Eastern egg, and there's women and children going up where there's a drunk husband. So this is an image as an example of a museum exhibit. From Moscow, I have a book of Professor Canello from 1900s. It's a lengthy book. I also bought a book on alcohol, which was published in Beijing. The content of the book are caricatures from Russia. This is an ornate book, and I could gift it to the said museum, which would be visited by school pupils in our country. So this is my proposal, and I would like to finish with that. The chair and I had a few words, and we have to talk with the Secretary General of the Seimas, and we could organize such an exhibition in our parliament. And it's important to disseminate this idea, and maybe there would be representatives of private businesses or other structures could contribute to this idea. So thank you for your initiative, for what you're doing. And it's great to see you here in this conference, but let's come back to the colleague from Poland. We're in a very special hall, and we're happy to have a signatory to the Act of Independence among us. The floor is yours.
Andrulenas, I represent a sobriety society in the name of Valenčius. Since we've touched upon the topic of sobriety, I would just like to say that I find it weird that we have alcohol control policy, whereas I believe we should have a sobriety policy. This is just my way of provoking you. There might be some forum participants who may not be aware of the fact that the Seimas of the previous legislature adopted a legal act legalizing moonshine, which I believe fails to meet the general trends that we are seeking for when it comes to alcohol control. So I would like to ask representatives of the Seimas whether or not you consider the idea of repealing that legal act. The next thing I wanted to say is regarding zero tolerance for drunk drivers. My proposal would be the following. Maybe the politicians would propose introducing zero tolerance for drunk driving for officers, because as far as I know, they're still allowed to have a slight alcohol blood concentration on work, on duty. So these are just some of my proposals, although yes, we do lack some of that alcohol control. As for alcohol consumption, I believe, since I myself a representative of sobriety movement for many years, perhaps you have also observed that there are barmen that sell alcohol to drunk customers, although the law prevents that. So there's still that can be done when it comes to implementation of control, and I wish all the best to all those stakeholders involved in that.
Gerbiamas profesoras, kur pristatė.
I would like to ask the professor from the two universities who has presented the longitudinal studies the following. Does the university cooperate with the children's rights institutions or any other stakeholders, or do you simply publish your studies in various magazines and you don't do anything further with your studies? Because I found it very interesting to learn about your work, and I wonder if anything is being done further with the results of your study, because I'm very much interested in children's rights and other related issues. Well, yes, we're not only involved in research, but also working with the NGOs working for the benefit of children. Services that are provided for children are not only in terms of bans, but also in terms of assistance services for children. We're also working with the Children's Rights Confederation, and I'm also constantly involved in producing a report on the situation of children's rights in Lithuania. And so we still have some issues regarding the accessibility of different statistics. There are many attempts to conduct numerous studies. We are lodging various proposals to different institutions, but it's a very difficult process. Together with colleagues from Australia, and Professor Rubin might recall that, well, these are some very difficult processes, and I do it free of charge, actually. It's more of volunteering activities as opposed to work or we work very much on the topic of the harm done to children, and there are a number of different studies conducted by numerous researchers showing that the average life expectancy of children is reduced by 20 years if they are nurtured by drunk parents. If we think about the children, those who are living on the verge of poverty, when we were developing our healthcare system and social system since the restoration of independence, we had to start our work from scratch. And in our studies, we look into the issues of poverty and alcohol consumption. Certainly, those children that are institutionalized, they also suffer more. And those institutions that are willing to work, they're not abundant. So it's a major task for us to continue cooperating, but we are definitely capable, and alcohol is definitely a #1 challenge for children. 9 out of 10 children are usually institutionalized because of alcohol or substance abuse pursued by their parents. So this is a major problem. And so it's a pity that the issue of cooperation is not being addressed. maybe there are too many challenges that have to be addressed to get on board those issues, but we still have to continue with the cooperation. So we try to cooperate, although the cooperation is still not that evident. Thank you, Professor, and I hope that your studies will be observed, you will be noticed. I hope you will be more involved in the work of your colleagues working in the children's rights institutions and police. These are our children, and we have to protect them. So we have to keep talking and be more vocal on those issues. So thank you very much. Well, I might have something for the members of the Seimas present today. Since I look into the alcohol-related harm on pregnant women, and the harm of alcohol on the development of the child in the womb. So we could also add, when we talk about the warnings on alcohol labels, on the harm done on the fetus by alcohol, I believe this is something that you should also include in your legislative proposals. Yes, I believe we won't be popular because whenever we talk, let's say, about the increase of excise duties, we are always wondering what's more important, the funds that we spend in healthcare or the revenue, budget revenue. So you have said it rightly. What is more important, the harm done on the development of the fetus or the economic benefit? What is more important? So if we look into our future and the future of our children, this is something that we definitely need to consider. So thank you, Professor. Yes, I see we're running out of time. So would there be anybody else willing to say a few words? Well, in that case, let me thank everyone for your participation. I'm grateful to the experts and our guests. As we find ourselves in this historic hall, as a member of the Seimas, I believe it is important to make the Parliament of the Republic of Lithuania as open an institution as possible and engage people from different walks of life in our discussions in order to seek common solutions. And so today we heard that only complex and consistent measures when it comes to the promotion of sobriety and balanced alcohol control policy can deliver positive results so long as we pursue them in a consistent and comprehensive way, as it has been said once again. And since we are sharing best practices as well as those from the stakeholders that have been working in the field for many years, I would now like to give the floor to Ms. Grażyna Belan. I don't want to say a long-standing expert, but perhaps a person of a wealth of experience in the field of alcohol control, who's the director of the Department of Alcohol and Tobacco Control. Thank you very much. I would like to say that since the adoption of the National Agenda on Alcohol, Tobacco and Substance Prevention and Control by 2035 was a major document, a roadmap, so to say, providing for the direction of action in terms of alcohol, tobacco, and substance control and prevention. And as for alcohol control, it also points out the importance of maintaining the existing alcohol control policy and changing the instruments available or implementing new ones that are evidence-based. This is a very important direction mentioned in the said roadmap. And it also talks about the introduction of the warnings on the labels of alcoholic beverages. Certainly, the contents of the warning will be very important, and so I'm grateful to the World Health Organization for the publication that they have issued. I've read it with pleasure, and I've learned that the level of literacy of Lithuanians on the effects of alcohol consumption is quite low. I believe we're only slightly above Bulgarians in this respect. That is, only 43% in Lithuania are aware of the effect of alcohol consumption on the development of cancer or cancerous diseases. And so I believe it is important to inform our people on this risk. Now, as for the situation in Lithuania in general, we try to compare the approach of Lithuanians in 2016-2017 with 2018 and 2020. Back in 2016, people maintained quite liberal sentiments towards alcohol consumption. And so the introduced measures apparently changed the behavior of our citizens when it comes to alcohol consumption. From the liberal approach towards their full support for the full ban of alcohol advertising, and the positive approach towards elevating the legal buying age. Moreover, in 2020, we've also observed that people tended to feel more safe following the introduction of certain alcohol control measures. As for our younger generation, we looked into the statistics of 2019, and I know that the statistics on the alcohol consumption among youth was already presented in 2024, just a year ago, and all of them demonstrate that we are moving in the right direction, so we just have to keep up with the good pace. And so my point is that as scientists, we tend to look more into the harm done by alcohol consumption and the economic damage attributable to alcohol consumption. Certainly, it is difficult to estimate the emotional harm done on children from alcohol-abusing parents, but perhaps we should look less into the harm as opposed to looking into the earnings by the state from implementing the recommendations of the World Health Organization. Certainly, looking into the estimates of harm is definitely important, but I represent not only the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco and Substance Control and Prevention, but I'm also a representative of the Public Health Office, and so we will definitely look into the need to look for more evidence that should serve as a basis for alcohol control policy, and hopefully this will also be funded from our own foundation.
Kolegoms iš užsienio.
Thank you. Once again, I would like to thank our colleagues from abroad for visiting us in Lithuania, for visiting the parliament, and I would like to wish you a safe trip back home. Additionally, I would like to wish every one of us to think about what can be done in our respective fields. And as Grażyna Bielan said, it is important that investments into our health, into the health of our children and our future would be as effective as possible. I would like to take the opportunity to say that I personally will continue on delivering my promise to gather as many people as possible here in the parliament and to hold discussions on a variety of topics. On the 7th of March, here in this hall, we'll be talking about the issues of children nutrition. And talk about Eurobeat's cancer plan, which has to do with this topic. On the 24th of March, there will be a roundtable discussion regarding the issue of colorectal cancer at the beginning of April. There's a discussion on cardiovascular diseases, which is also related to lifestyle choices and alcohol consumption. So we have many topics to discuss. I would like to invite everyone to collaborate, to be open to a variety of proposals. And how can we foster positive changes? And the most important moment of today's event, coffee.
Taip kad prašom visus į kavos pertrauką.
Please enjoy your coffee break.
Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
invitation.
Thank you, it was a pleasure.
Honor being